Unit 13, Safety and Security Issues for Property Management Staff. Learning objectives. When you have completed this unit, you will be able to accomplish the following. Design a life safety program to meet 4 goals. Prevention, detection, containment, and counteracting damages. Describe the role of personnel in life safety situations. Identify procedures for various emergency situations. Explain how to prevent criminal activity on the property. Overview. The management of life safety and security is a special management concern that is increasingly becoming more complex and sophisticated. We no longer think solely in terms of security for office buildings, shopping centers, and other properties, but instead in terms of the total environment and the protection of those in that environment from harm caused by criminal acts, natural disasters, and hazardous materials. Building security no longer simply means the presence of a night watchman. Security is a 24-hour-a-day, 365 days a year responsibility, and the modern approach to dealing with sprinkler system tenant emergency procedures, manual tenant wardens emergencies, such as fire and natural disasters, focuses on prevention and safety. Hence, the term life safety has come into favor. Managing life safety and security. Learning objectives. Design a life safety program to meet 4 goals: prevention, detection, containment, and counteracting damages. Security officers are now called life safety officers. Their responsibilities have increased commensurably with technical advances and the changing needs of building owners. Adequate security, as defined by the courts, is that security necessary to protect life and property under the circumstances existing in the building and the neighborhood of the property in question. Owners who have failed to maintain adequate security have been subjected to lawsuits with judgments often running into millions of dollars. The program to deal with emergencies threatening life and property is based on 4 goals. Preventing emergencies or security breaches. Detecting a breach as early as possible and sounding an alarm. Containing or confining the damage or intrusion as much as possible. Counteracting the damage by prompt and proper action, such as extinguishing a fire or arresting an intruder. Post 9/11s. Historically, many building owners kept security measures at a minimum. However, since September 11, 2001, owners feel required to significantly heighten security. As a result of the attacks on the World Trade Center, many facets of public life have been changed forever. Not only do people now wait in long security lines at the airport, but they must also register, carry ID badges, and be recognized in many office buildings as well. Building a smart and safe building. Americans have a history of recognizing and utilizing broad applications from one program to another. For example, the space program of the 1960s not only furthered advances in flight technology, but also in fire and safety standards. Medics in Vietnam developed procedures that kept many soldiers alive during and after the battles. Today, real estate developers, architects, insurers, and business owners are scrambling to cover contingencies as they try to learn from 9/11s. The first bombings a few years earlier were only precursors to the actual disaster in 2001. The owner of the World Trade Center quickly learned that reading the insurance policy is extremely important, and architects are now searching for building alternatives that could provide a safer environment. Key policy. One World Trade Center, unofficially known as the Freedom Tower, is now open as the tallest building in the United States. The building consists of many green features: fuel cells to provide clean energy, waste steam recycling, world-class mass transit, recycled rainwater, central chiller using water from the Hudson River, waste material recycling, recycled building materials, monitored indoor air, no volatile organic compounds VOCs, daylighting, low water bathrooms, and 50% of the wood is sourced from sustainable harvested forests. A number of safety features have been included, such as 1-meter thick concrete wall encasing the elevators and blast walls at the base to fortify the building against truck bombs. If there should ever be another attack, the staircases are extra wide, and first responders have dedicated stairwells only for climbing up. In addition to safety designs, additional security features have been implemented, such as screening for radioactivity, closed-circuit surveillance cameras, and special computer software to identify potential threats. Utilizing personnel, equipment, and procedure. Generally, a good life safety and security program is a 3-pronged approach that incorporates skilled use of equipment, personnel, and procedure. Each property manager must tailor a life safety and security program to the tenant's needs, whether the property is commercial, industrial, or residential. The discussion that follows will not be wholly applicable to all types or sizes of properties. Emergency equipment and technology. New and improved equipment to assist with life safety and security is constantly coming on the market. The property manager can stay informed of all such developments by regularly reviewing security trade magazines and, if possible, attending trade shows. Concerned property managers will continually expand their knowledge of life safety and security technology by independent inquiry. Modern security technology is available in the form of advanced electronic equipment intercommunication networks, automated fire protection and security systems, access control, closed-circuit television, which in many buildings is integrated with lighting and temperature control devices. The property manager must plan carefully to coordinate all of these elements into an effective integrated system. Individual features must be selected with care and then fitted into the overall system. New buildings are constructed with state-of-the-art electronic devices, but property managers of older structures must retrofit their buildings to provide these same services. Often this is best done on a phase-by-phase basis. A particularly good opportunity to install electronic equipment is between occupancies, but this is not always necessary as most electronic installations are similar to changing telephone or electric outlets, thus impose no serious disruptions of tenant services. Building systems. The design concept of present-day emergency equipment is to discover and report a fire or other emergency before it further threatens life and property. The focal point of up-to-date emergency response systems is a master central control panel in a life safety control room that automatically monitors smoke detectors, water flow switches for the sprinkler system, and manual fire alarm pull stations located throughout the building. For example, if a smoke detector or sprinkler water flow switch detects a fire, an annunciator is activated on the fire panel in the life safety control room, prompting the operator to summon the fire department. If fire is discovered by a building staff member or a tenant before one of the emergency fire devices signals the fire control panel, manual fire pull stations can be used, as well as telephones or two-way radios placed strategically throughout the building to alert the life safety control center operator that an emergency exists. The fire control panel in the life safety control room starts fans, which pressurize stairwells to prevent the entry of smoke and unlock stairway doors to provide unlimited access for evacuation. The latest fire alarm systems will even cause the smoke to be vented out of the building through the HVAC system. The fire control panel contains a speaker system, which can play pre-recorded evacuation instructions or broadcast instructions on any floors or combination of floors to warn of a fire. Key policy. Telephones or telephone jacks should be located next to each exit door and in the elevator lobbies for intercommunication between the floor of the emergency and the control room. These communication devices are useful to firefighters, maintenance personnel, and security staff. Elevators. The danger in using elevators during a building fire comes from heat and smoke or toxic gases accumulated in the elevator shaft. Elevator shafts running throughout the building create a chimney effect, causing an updraft of air and filling them with gas and smoke, which can be poisonous to elevator occupants. When a fire occurs in a high-rise building equipped with the latest electronic safety devices, elevators in the fire zone will not respond to a call from the call button, forcing use of the stairwells to get to another floor, and will move elevators to the ground level. Once the elevators are captured and returned to the ground floor, they cannot be operated without an elevator control key. Thereafter, only trained personnel at the direction of the building manager or fire officials may use the elevators, a measure that prevents unauthorized personnel from using the elevators and risking injury to themselves and others. Provisions must be made to evacuate physically impaired persons from floors affected by emergencies. Thus, a life safety officer or tenant warden must capture an elevator and take it to a safe floor closest to the fire. Responding personnel must then disencumber the disabled person from wheelchair or crutches and carry the individual down the stairwell to a waiting elevator or a safe location. Smoke detectors. Smoke detectors, which will indicate danger by flashing a light on the detector housing panel, should be located on each floor. In a centralized system, a charged smoke detector will prompt in a local alarm or an alarm in the fire control room. Smoke detectors usually reset automatically once they have been cleared of smoke. Smoke detectors may also make a loud sound to attract attention. The manager should ensure that the detectors are tested regularly and that they meet the minimum state and local requirements. Sprinkler system. Water flow detectors signal the fire panel when a sprinkler head is discharging water, a pipe has broken, or another plumbing malfunction has occurred. Valve tamper alarms are available for sprinkler valves to indicate whether the sprinkler valve has been closed to prevent the sprinklers on that floor from discharging water in the event of a fire. Sprinkler water flow switches reset automatically when water ceases to flow through the sprinkler system. Paging system. A paging system should be installed on each floor to permit broadcast of emergency messages, which in some cases may be pre-taped. If tied into the music system, an override switch will permit paging to any number of selected floors. In some systems, emergency response personnel, including the fire or police department, can communicate with the control center by use of intercom connector outlets on each floor using plug-in handsets. Intrusion alarms. Security intrusion detectors' intrusion alarms are quite sophisticated. They can be activated by sound or motion and send wireless signals to a control panel that can identify the exact area of intrusion. The sound detection devices can be activated by running water, alerting security personnel to broken water pipes or other abnormal water flow. Monitoring tenant equipment. Extensive remodeling frequently alters the life safety protection requirements of an area of a building, such as exit routes and alarms, and fire protection and tenant notification systems. Therefore, remodeling plans should be reviewed by the property manager with the assistance of experienced life safety personnel to ensure that remodeling efforts meet current life safety, fire, and security provisions. In addition to building code review, some cities require that the Fire Department Inspection Bureau review plans and facilities. Fire codes generally dictate that finishing materials, carpeting, draperies, wall coverings, and ceiling tile have a low flame spread rating. Building management should make every effort to ensure that any new materials placed in the buildings conform to those standards, especially along common paths of travel that lead to exits. A difficult and often politically sensitive challenge is to control type and quality of tenant-installed furnishings and the finish on new products. Every effort should be made to avoid use of any form of plastics, which when burned produce toxic gases that are hazardous to all tenants. Tenants should be encouraged to use non-combustible or fire-retardant treated furniture and self-extinguishing upholstery and materials. Drapery should be of glass fiber or other flame-proof material, and carpeting padding must have a relatively low flame spread and smoke developing rating obtained from the manufacturer. Of flame spread, smoke developing, and fuel contributing rating of 25 or less is desirable. Role of personnel in life safety. Life safety personnel. Learning objective. Describe the role of personnel in life safety situations. Employee training procedures. To protect employees and company assets, employees must be provided a safe working environment. Management must provide training programs for each employee, including training with each type of equipment the employee will be using and applying all the safety measures required for its operation. Safety guidelines are based on applicable rules and regulations of federal, state, and local governments, as well as established policies of the building ownership and management. Training programs should be written, reviewed, and approved by management. Employees should not be assigned duties for which they are not properly trained or physically capable of performing. Duties requiring a specific license or permit are assigned only to employees holding valid licenses or permits. Employees must work from written operating procedures and safety regulations applicable to their duties. Two organizations are working to advance the professional standing of life safety and security personnel. The American Society for Industrial Security ASIS, which has developed a designation program. Certified Protection Professional CPP based on its training courses. The National Burglar and Fire Alarm Association NBFAA, which provides a certification course for security installations personnel. Protect human life. The first priority of a life safety and security program is to protect human life. During an emergency, members of the building staff will be expected to help combat the danger and protect human life, but under no circumstances must any person undertake unnecessary risks that would endanger themselves or other building occupants. A life safety program is for the protection of all persons in the building, staff members included. It is impossible to determine in advance exactly how an emergency will occur, so systems to mobilize, deploy, and protect personnel must be designed to provide a wide range of responses to any emergency. Each member of the building staff must be well informed about how the system works and the problems that may be encountered in handling an emergency. Central base of operations. The key to dealing with all emergencies is to establish a central headquarters, or base of operations. In buildings with small staffs, this may be the manager's office or the information desk. Large complexes establish an elaborate life safety control center, fully staffed 24 hours a day, and usually located on the ground floor or on a floor below grade. Although the following discussion describes procedures for a larger complex, the manager of a smaller property should have no trouble adapting the principles to that property. All communications should come from a designated person in the Life Safety Control Center. Specific duties should be assigned to the various personnel of the property management staff, such as the roving officer, the property maintenance manager, mechanical technicians, Life Safety Control Center operator, chief of security, and the building manager. They should report in person to the control center or inform the control center that they are at their assigned posts. The property maintenance manager and mechanical technicians should be in charge of all mechanical functions on the floor where an emergency occurs, reporting to the life safety control operator on conditions existing there. If possible, they will try to deal with an emergency, for example, extinguishing fires with portable fire extinguishers until the arrival of trained emergency personnel, after which they should assist and act as advisors. For instance, they should be responsible for ensuring that activated sprinkler systems will not be turned off prematurely by unauthorized personnel. All personnel on the emergency floor must exercise great caution to avoid placing themselves in danger unnecessarily. Tenant wardens. The most modern equipment and the best devised emergency procedures will be useless unless the property manager and staff are well trained and disciplined to act effectively and calmly. The tenants respond to staff orders and everyone follows routines as set out in the procedures. This is best accomplished by organizing a cadre of tenant wardens, employees of tenant companies who are schooled in emergency procedures by the building staff to direct their fellow employees during routine drills and actual emergencies. Many tenants may have skills or training that would be of critical assistance in an emergency. Some may even have been previously employed as firefighters or police officers or have pertinent military experience. The property manager should locate and qualify these people through the tenant warden organization by requesting response to a questionnaire. P policy. Special clothing, such as red baseball caps, should be provided to tenant wardens for use during drills and actual emergencies. Recognition of the tenant warden team by holding regular monthly training sessions and other activities will increase their visibility, creditability, and make them an effective supplement to the building staff during emergencies. A tenant employee should be selected to lead the warden team. Personnel assignments. The following descriptions of the roles played by various building personnel in an emergency assumes a sizable building staff available for assignment to life safety and security duties in addition to daily occupational routines. The functions illustrated, however, are typical of the needs to be met in an emergency, regardless of the number of on-site employees. Even in a smaller building, the property manager should see that all the areas are covered, although sometimes one person may be responsible for more than one task. Emergency spokesperson. In the event of a major emergency, such as a fire, explosion, or natural disaster, the first priority is always the safety of employees, tenants, and the public. In an emergency, an authorized spokesperson designated in advance must be available constantly to represent management on the scene and provide immediate factual information on personnel casualties to employees' families. To the extent possible, the emergency spokesperson refrains from giving out information on personnel casualties before families have been notified. The property manager is responsible for notifying the property owner as soon as possible. Life Safety Control Center operator. It is the responsibility of the Life Safety Control Center operator to notify the fire department and building personnel and provide communication throughout the emergency. A list of personnel in the building who should be contacted in case of emergency and the order in which they are to be notified should be maintained in the center. Also, a list of all known disabled occupants and their usual workstations should be maintained in the control center to immediately provide to roving life safety officers. The center control operator assists the fire department through the communication system and advises them of current information coming into the control center. Upon notification of an emergency condition by an alarm on the control panel, the control center operator begins notifying the personnel on the communications list and assigning life safety personnel. After making sure the service elevators are called and waiting at the ground floor for arrival of the emergency response teams, the operator, through the emergency paging system, notifies occupants of the floors affected of the need to evacuate in the event a taped message is not operational. Life Safety Officer. The responsibility of a roving LSO is to assist tenant evacuation and enforce safety precautions. It is also the officer's responsibility to provide an elevator or alternate means for evacuation of the disabled. To do so, the officer goes directly to the ground level using whatever means necessary, remembering that elevators in the affected zone will probably not be available for use. Mechanical technician. The property maintenance manager and one mechanical technician must report to the emergency scene to take charge of the mechanical functions on the floor, including fire extinguishing devices. If two mechanical technicians are on duty, one should meet the fire department with information about the building's mechanical systems. Property manager. The property manager reports to the control center to assist the emergency crews and directs the action of all building staff. The senior security officer on duty reports to the building's main entrance or to a designated alternate location if the entrance is inaccessible. The officer coordinates assignments of all non-technical building employees. Unassigned personnel. It is the responsibility of all building employees with no specific assignment to report to a central point for instructions. Assistance requested by emergency crews will be supplied through the manpower at this location. Procedures for emergency situations. Property management procedures. Each property manager responsible for life safety and security is charged with the development and implementation of procedures that emphasize employee training, fire and accident prevention, good housekeeping, equipment maintenance, and safety of tenants, customers, employees, and the community. Procedures must meet requirements of the Occupational Safety and Health Act and other applicable laws. Life safety procedures. These are generally organized into two parts: in-house or internal procedures. Hazard detection and emergency evacuation procedures, internal procedures. In-house procedures concern only building management and its employees and are circulated only on a need-to-know basis. That is, procedures that concern only one group of employees are given only to that group, whereas procedures for the guidance of tenants are often distributed to every employee of every tenant. Hazard detection and emergency evacuation. Hazard detection and emergency evacuation procedures are of particular concern in older structures. Newer projects are equipped with state-of-the-art security and fire detection equipment and building operating systems. Older structures have to be retrofitted with adequate safety features and building operating systems as the need is determined and as their physical structures permit. Often, because the physical structure of an older building does not permit installation of some of the more modern technology, managers of older structures depend more on management procedures than on technology in managing life safety. Disaster planning. A disaster procedure or emergency response plan, an expansion of emergency procedures designed for handling severe damage, calls for setting up an off-site command post and a chain of command. Prior arrangements must be made on a standby basis with suppliers of emergency items or necessary repair material. For instance, after a hurricane, there is usually an immediate shortage of plywood. Although it would not be feasible for a building owner to stockpile extensive quantities of plywood, on the chance that a hurricane or tornado would require its use, arrangements must be made with the wholesale lumber trade for immediate confirmed purchase and delivery of plywood. This arrangement would require extensive coordination by life safety personnel, the accounting department, and other involved parties. Emergency supplies. If space and budget permit, it is good practice to stockpile a small quantity of emergency supplies. In a hurricane zone, for example, large plastic tarps and enough plywood could be kept on hand to board up all ground floor windows. In an area subject to earthquakes or hurricanes, a 72-hour food and water supply should be maintained. Additionally, if a building does not have a standby or auxiliary electricity source, a generator with ample fuel supply should be kept available. Evacuation drills. Evacuation plans should be developed for all buildings and evacuation drills should be regularly scheduled. The tenant warden organization should be actively involved in planning and executing such drills as a means of testing the building emergency organization, equipment, and tenant indoctrination. The buildings that are higher than the local fire department are equipped to reach generally 7 stories may require more elaborate emergency evacuation planning and drills. Emergency preparedness procedures. At a minimum, emergency response plans should include fire, explosion, bomb threat, evacuation, and elevator emergency procedures. In certain geographic areas, planning should include responses to earthquake, tornado, hurricane, or other severe weather. A well-trained emergency organization comprised of building management and staff must be in place to respond to emergencies using the plans as a guide. It is recommended that tenant wardens be included in the emergency organizations to aid in evacuation if necessary. An emergency coordinator, normally the building property manager, should head up the emergency team. Key policy. Written procedures detailing emergency organization members' duties should be provided to each member, and periodic training sessions held to test emergency response. Managers must develop and keep current emergency plans for their properties. Inspection procedures. Protection of tenants, company assets, and the general public depends on minimizing hazards at each property. Many potential emergencies can be detected and minimized by instituting a thorough life safety inspection procedure. Fire protection systems must be inspected on a regular basis and repairs made immediately. In addition, walk-through inspections for safety hazards and housekeeping problems should be conducted by building management at least twice annually, with more thorough inspections annually. Structural inspections should be a day-to-day practice of the maintenance technicians, and if defects are found, a structural engineer should be engaged to make an inspection. Because electrical problems can cause fires and plumbing breaks can cause major damage, it is very important that an inspection schedule for each of these systems be regularly scheduled and a preventive maintenance program adopted. Most state laws require that properties with boilers be inspected by a licensed boiler inspector. Documentation of all inspections should be retained in management files for a period of at least 2 years, along with documentation of repairs of defective or damaged equipment discovered during inspections. Insurance companies require ongoing inspection of the facilities they insure and will issue recommendations based on the inspections. These inspections are designed to assist property management personnel in the area of fire protection and to gather underwriting data about the property. Upon completing the inspection, inspectors meet with the property manager to outline recommendations and resolve questions, communicating with tenants and the media. In any building emergency, from a partially flooded floor due to a plumbing breakdown to a total conflagration, it is imperative that the property manager make immediate contact with each tenant. The manager should contact the landlord's legal counsel as soon as possible in order to discuss suggested dialogue with tenants, the media, and others. An inaccurate or wrongly recorded statement could potentially be very damaging to the property owner and the management company. In a large building, the property manager may delegate assistants to make a preliminary visit to assure tenants that the property manager will contact them as soon as the emergency has been brought under control. An open, sympathetic, and understanding manner is essential, and the property manager would do well to prepare a written statement that could be used as a guideline so that all points will be covered, particularly if the manager is unable to contact each tenant personally. Tenant Emergency Procedure Manual. The property manager should make a printed booklet available to tenant management detailing the emergency organization, workday procedures and telephone numbers, and after-hours procedures. Building management should maintain an up-to-date list of permanently and temporarily handicapped occupants of each business building, along with procedures for their evacuation. Because action to be taken by tenants and systems operation affecting occupants must be set out clearly, written procedures for dealing with various building emergencies can become quite lengthy. This documentation is necessary, but it should be condensed and published in a distinctively colored brochure for each building occupant. Usually called an Emergency Procedures Guide, the Tenant Emergency Procedures Manual should include, at a minimum, procedures for the following emergency situations: accident or illness, tornado or hurricane, or earthquake, fire drill, bomb threat, elevator emergencies including building or floor evacuation and special emergencies, criminal activity, accident or illness. In the event of an employee or visitor illness or accident, the guide directs tenants to call the Life Safety Control Room to report the location of the incident and other available details. They are instructed not to move the injured or ill persons, but to try to make them comfortable. Many tenants will have skilled first aid and CPR trained employees. They should be identified before an emergency so that they can be located quickly if and when there is an emergency. When outside help, such as medical personnel, have been summoned to the building, one person should be dispatched to the building entrance to act as guide for the emergency crew. Tornado or hurricane. This section of the booklet should include definitions of a tornado watch and a tornado warning. A tornado watch is a report from National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration officials that weather conditions are conducive to the creation of a tornado. A tornado warning is an alert by the National Weather Service that confirms a tornado sighting and its location. Winds during tornadoes can be 300 mph or more. Detailed instructions are included for self-protection for those persons in various parts of the building exterior offices, corridors, lobby. In the event a tornado watch is changed to a tornado warning and official emergency sirens are sounded, a message similar to the one below is broadcast on the emergency paging system. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? This is the Life Safety Department. The Weather Bureau has issued a tornado warning for this building's immediate area. Building occupants should move away from all windows. Proceed to inside offices, corridors, restrooms, or stairways until the danger has passed. Do not leave the building. The Life Safety Department will keep you advised. Earthquake. There are usually warnings for tornadoes and hurricanes, allowing managers some time to prepare the office and tenants. But there are rarely warnings of an earthquake. If the damage is not too severe, it can be dealt with from the building. Under severe conditions, however, rescue and recovery operations must operate from a location outside the building. Because earthquakes vary in intensity, procedures for tenant action and dealing with the consequent damages must provide for alternatives ranging from no damage to complete destruction. In any event, messages must be broadcast to persons in the building. Typical announcements for various consequences of earthquakes are shown. The building manager should consult with local fire and police departments when writing earthquake procedures. For large complexes, it may be advisable to hire consultants specially trained in disaster response. Fire drill. Most tenants will remember fire drill procedures from their school days. Good fire emergency procedure, based on more sophisticated versions of these exercises, will appear in the guide. In buildings with a large number of occupants, the designation and equipping of wardens should include something visual so that they will be known to the evacuees. This is most important. Bomb and poison threat. Bomb threats, although not common, must be taken seriously. A new variation is the threat that a poison will be released in the air. These threat procedures should be reviewed with each new tenant and periodically with tenant representatives. Usually, the person receiving a bomb threat is a clerical employee in the building who routinely answers the phone. A bomb threat checklist included in the emergency procedures guide kept at each employee's desk should be completed immediately after the call is received. The bomb threat checklist is quite extensive and includes descriptions for the caller's voice, speech, language, accent, and so forth. Elevator emergencies. Emergencies with elevator operations are not uncommon, so continuing emphasis needs to be placed on how they are to be handled. These procedures can be obtained from the company who installed the elevators. Emergency special provisions. Emergency special provisions complete the guide and cover general items such as the use and location of portable fire extinguishers, elevator operation procedures, and location of exit stairways. Criminal activity. Planned responses to criminal activity include drills wherein the police are called as available security personnel to scour the subject building in order to report on where the activity is located. When police arrive, the security personnel are there to direct them to the scene. Minimizing post-emergency damage. The first consideration after a disaster has damaged a building is the safety of personnel who may need to gain access to the premises, which is especially critical after major structural damage, such as that caused by earthquakes. A structural engineer should be immediately consulted together with the assistance of the fire department and building code enforcement officials to determine just how safe the damaged structure is and what sort of access can be allowed. If the structure is severely damaged, total demolition may be necessary. It is in the best interest of the owner for the property manager to take immediate steps to prevent further damage, not only to prevent further loss but to meet insurance requirements. In fact, insurance policies provide reimbursement to the owner for expenses incurred to prevent loss beyond initial damage over and above the amounts payable for the damage itself. Measures that may prevent additional damages include boarding up windows, placing tarpaulins over furniture or inventory, installing a temporary building cover, and the like. Utility lines and equipment must be inspected and protected. One often overlooked after effect of building damage in cold weather is the freezing of exposed pipes. The property manager must be aware that the insurer will not pay for additional damage that reasonably could have been prevented. Business interruption insurance is designed to alleviate financial losses from suspension of rent. It is very simple to compute lost rent, but the dollars and cents effects of collateral costs, such as loss of customers, are intangible and thus difficult to measure and quantify. Many fallout costs may not be recoverable from insurance. Restoration operations. Emergency planning must not overlook the restoration phase. Matters to consider regarding post-disaster or post-accident restoration operations include providing protective clothing and breathing apparatuses for employees who assist utilities in establishing power through the building and salvaging personal property and equipment. Fire protection equipment must be brought to a ready status as soon as possible, and tests must be conducted for hazardous chemicals that may have spilled or been released into the air. High-speed reconstruction. Resuming operations as soon as possible can minimize losses from business interruption, and there are construction companies that specialize in speedy disaster repair. As part of an emergency preparedness plan, a forward-looking property manager will seek out such companies and learn their capabilities. In the event of a widespread catastrophe, these specialists will be in high demand, so having prior acquaintance with these contractors and contingent arrangements for their services helps to ensure their availability if disaster strikes. High-speed reconstruction companies employ non-routine methods, materials, and techniques, but because they are familiar with insurance claims submission, they prepare their cost estimates to conform to the requirements of insurers and use only stock materials and equipment. Their special techniques include using rapid curing cement, thus reducing the time required for concrete to become strong enough to support further building. Similar time savings can be effected in many other ways, and these specialty contractors are experts in their application. Disaster aftershocks. Effects of serious disaster damage on a building include aspects other than visible destruction, as demonstrated by reports from Hurricanes Hugo and Andrew and the 1989 San Francisco and 1994 Los Angeles earthquakes. Similarly, many businesses in New York City suffered for months following the 9/11's attacks on the World Trade Centers. Everyone learned after 9/11's just how much we rely on the availability of electricity and phone service. Retail stores lost business while they were closed because customers had to satisfy their needs elsewhere, a loss that often continued after reopening because many patrons formed new shopping patterns and never returned. There were other problems as well. Many retailers had customers, but they could not process credit card payments due to issues with electricity. The power outage that engulfed several states in the summer of 2003 also illustrated serious flaws. In New York City, many tenants were locked out of their walk-up apartments because electronic keys were the only means to unlock doors, which were ineffective without electricity. Likewise, many hotels were not prepared for the loss of electricity, so hotel guests ended up sleeping on the pavement. Not only could the guests not enter their rooms, but it was unsafe to have people in the building without adequate fire protection. Restaurants had to deal with properly disposing of rotting food left in non-functional refrigerators. In a shopping center that has received overage rent, the resulting sales losses can be a serious financial blow. Also, landlords may lose tenants because of lease clauses that permit cancellation in the event of destruction of the premises. On top of this, leasing programs for new space or space soon to have been vacated must be suspended, causing prospective tenants wanting to open by a certain date to seek alternate locations. For non-retail businesses, the loss of a central office or a key facility such as a manufacturing plant or distribution center will cause massive internal disruption. An after-action review committee, composed of representatives of the owners, managing company, and pertinent others should meet following a disaster, accident, or emergency drill to evaluate the response of building management and all other parties to the accident, disaster, or emergency drill. An after-action report with appropriate recommendations should be written. The completed report should be circulated to the owner and to management for any necessary corrective action. Crime prevention. Learning objective. Explain how to prevent criminal activity on the property. Managing criminal activity issues. A critical safety issue is protection from criminal acts. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Statistics BJS National Crime Victimization Survey, and CVS for 2014 U.S., residents age 12 or older experienced an estimated 5.4 million violent victimizations and 15.3 million property victimizations. Crime has become the number one problem for many Americans and certainly for many property managers. Increasing management liability. Not only are crimes occurring in or on properties managed by professional property managers, but those property owners and managers are increasingly being held accountable for those crimes by courts. For example, a shopping center owner in Los Angeles was ordered to pay $3.5 million to the parents of 4 teenage girls who were murdered during a 1991 robbery in a store where 2 of the girls worked. The parents of a New York woman who was murdered in a clothing store where she worked sued 2 security firms, among others, for her death. In light of these facts, property managers must take an active role in making sure the premises they manage are as secure as possible. Preventing criminal activity. Because prevention is a basic ingredient of any life safety and security program, proper technical equipment, appropriate locks and keys, access control, and visible security devices is essential to deter criminal activity. Strategically placed cameras allow one guard to monitor many areas, and central intercommunication systems capable of broadcasting to specific areas assist in control. A complete survey of building security by a trained and experienced security consultant is vital to the success of a life safety program. The consultant should be brought in early, during the planning stage of the new building or during the drafting of major remodeling. Crime prevention sections of the local police department may offer crime prevention and safety seminars at low or no cost. As with any building expenditure, the property manager must heed budgetary restrictions. However, prices of electronic devices continue to decrease as more suppliers enter the market with new mechanisms that outperform the old, criminal theft procedures and requirements. Managers and landlords should prohibit tenants from readily displaying or making visible any costly items. This guideline is not necessarily applicable to retail centers where there is usually optimum security. It is more applicable to large industrial and commercial complexes, which have little to no evening traffic and much less security manpower per given area. For example, a flat-screen TV manufacturer should be discouraged from showcasing products on the walls in the office reception area that is easily visible through windows and glass doors. Good thieves will be in and out, even with alarms, before anyone can stop the theft. All tenants in these large developed areas should be required to have, at minimum, a security system that notifies a security company and the on-site security company and the on-site security officer. Part of the life safety issue is that many of the theft rings are well armed, so civilian casualties cannot be ignored if the thievery is not thwarted by preventive measures. Signpostings that security is armed are another helpful deterrent. If there are security cameras in place, then signpostings warning criminals of this may also prevent unwanted activity. Hiring security personnel. Property managers may choose to hire their own security personnel or contract with a security firm. If property managers hire their own personnel, they must take special care to properly train and supervise those personnel. And if they contract with a security firm, they must choose that firm carefully. To properly train security personnel, the building security supervisor must first identify the skills, procedures, and duties the personnel must know, including the management of physical confrontations. Next, the supervisor has to determine how often personnel should review these procedures and duties. High-priority skills generally receive more emphasis in the training process. Then the supervisor must devise a plan to train security personnel in these procedures, maintain a regular schedule of training, and provide adequate feedback. In order to choose a competent security firm, a property manager must have clearly defined standards and then carefully evaluate the quality of the services offered. The manager must decide what duties will be required of the security personnel, what equipment will be needed, who will provide insurance coverage, and who will provide supplies such as uniforms. The manager must then carefully screen the firms by thoroughly checking all references and investigating their hiring, training, and supervision policies. Watch programs. Community watch programs are becoming a popular way to reduce crime and the effects of crime, including costly repairs, vacancies, declining property values, and lawsuits. Community watch programs are based on cooperation using the joint efforts of police and tenants to combat crime. While traditionally used by residential neighborhoods to reduce crime, watch programs are effective for all types of properties. Community watch programs are currently being used in apartment complexes, shopping centers, and commercial properties. Community watch programs often include monthly meetings between management, local police, and tenants on various security issues, a telephone chain among tenants to alert them of possible criminal activity, and a fax network between tenants to share information and safety tips. Security officers on the property may also be in touch with a police officer by means of a police-type radio, which can be used to call for police help when necessary. To set up a community watch program, property managers should contact local law enforcement offices, get advice and support from already existing groups, and get tenants involved. As tenants begin to look out for suspicious activities, they get to know each other, and often overall satisfaction begins to rise, a very nice side benefit and a way to cut back on turnover. Working to control illegal drug activity. Illegal drug activity and crime often go hand in hand. In order to reduce other types of crimes, property managers must often work to reduce or eliminate illegal drug activities first. Illegal drug activity is predominantly a problem for residential properties. Additionally, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency takes a zero-tolerance approach to the presence of drugs on the property, and the owner could see the building forfeited if no action has been taken to stem drug usage and trafficking. Make repairs. Property managers can take several steps to create a drug-free property. First, the manager should make sure all maintenance and repairs are completed. For example, sending repair crews to fix broken fences and windows can help eliminate means of access to the property and disrupt the drug dealer's business. Publicizing these repairs and improvements throughout the community via local newspaper articles, flyers, and word of mouth can change the image of the property, thus discouraging drug activity. Involve other tenants. Calling regular meetings of the tenants and discussing problems, as well as identifying tenant and management responsibilities for the solutions, is also an effective tool. Encouraging resident activities such as exercise classes, tenant patrols, and co-op daycare also fosters a new attitude among residents that discourages drug activity. Educating staff members to recognize signs of drug use and working closely with the police are also important tools. Make use of technology. Various devices are now available to help with security issues. These include closed-circuit television using high-tech, low-light cameras that can pick up considerable detail at great distances. Robot patrols are available that come equipped with video surveillance, smoke detectors, and odor sensing and heat sensing devices. Touchpad radios can be used as either a radio or a telephone and can be used to summon the police from any location. Caller ID and audio taping systems can be used on security telephones to help trace calls and verify the caller's message. Key policy review lease clauses. While landlords cannot be completely protected from liability for injuries and damages caused by crime, lease provisions can be used to minimize liability. Property managers should consult competent, experienced attorneys to determine if their standard lease clauses should be changed to help protect themselves and property owners from excessive liability. Stop employee crime. Property managers should also be aware that they may be held liable for any crimes committed by their employees. For example, if a resident manager breaks into the apartment she is supposed to be overseeing, the property manager who hired the manager and provided a master key to the apartments may well be held liable. This kind of liability is based on the argument that the property manager made an improper hiring decision. To minimize this kind of liability, property managers should thoroughly screen job applicants. If a security guard who has a criminal history of breaking and entering burglarizes an apartment building, the property manager likely will be held liable on the basis of hiring someone who posed a threat to the tenants. After hiring all personnel, the property manager must carefully supervise them. Property managers should never allow employees to engage in conduct that endangers others. If a property manager learns that an employee is behaving recklessly or criminally and fails to take corrective action, that manager can be held liable for any damage caused by that employee. Case study: the Life Safety Manager. Susan Kim manages a small business park. Several of the tenants have been complaining about a recent crime spree in the park. A number of businesses have been burglarized and one tenant's employee was mugged in the parking lot. Also, the local newspaper has published several articles on the increased danger of flooding in the area due to increased building in the nearby watershed. Tenants have asked Kim to increase security, reduce crime, and develop an emergency plan should the business park flood next spring. Should Kim hire a security firm, and if so, what should Kim look for? What are some of the ways that Kim can reduce crime? What elements should be included in Kim's emergency procedures guide?